Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Viper's Nest, where we talk about obscure lore, kind of, today. So the lore we're going to be discussing today is actually a bit of the lore about myself, your host, because I figured it might be a good idea for the people who out there who are so kindly listening to me ramble on and on in these internet videos. Maybe you might want to get to know about a little more about the person you're listening to. So today is today's an interesting day. Today is September 11th, and most people around the world know what that date means, like especially to America. You know, if you somehow don't, the September 11th terrorist attacks on the World Trade Centers happened. So that's not what the whole of the video is going to be about, obviously. But I happened to glance at the calendar, before I started recording, and for a parent of a stay-at-home dad of two, the days tend to kind of blur together, so I'd actually forgotten that that's what today was. And then I glanced at the calendar and, remembered. So, like I said, the whole of this video it's not going to be about 9/11. I just feel I should address it since that's the day I'm recording on. So, a little bit of tidbits tied to my real life about September 11th. So, when the September 11th attacks happened, I was in middle school. And at the time, I was going to a private Christian academy, and there's some lore there, let me tell you what, but I'm not going to get into that. The point is that from where I live, it was like a 45-minute drive to get to this private Christian academy, so I had to wake up even more ungodly early than most kids who were going to school at the time. And also, I suffered from some pretty bad insomnia. Like, I still do. I have medications to help me get to sleep at night and stay asleep now. But I didn't have those when I was in middle school because it wasn't a thing that ever really came up. I just couldn't sleep. Eventually get to sleep. Maybe sleep for about 4 to 5 hours a night, and then wake up extra early and go to school. The point is, when I woke up in the morning, I was just fatigued out of my freaking mind. When people say there's zombies in the morning, I straight up was a zombie most mornings. So I get up and, stagger out into the living room to, get my breakfast before I hop in the car for the 45-minute drive to the private school. And, unusual thing, my dad was actually awake and sitting down and watching the news. My dad, if he watched the morning news, it was usually before I actually managed to wake up in the morning, and then he himself would, get ready to go to work at his machine shop, and he was, out the door, usually as I was staggering out of my room. But he wasn't today, so I happened to, stagger into the room, and I turn and I see what he's watching on the TV, and I see a plane crashing into a building. And my zombified, fatigue-addled mind just kind of processed that as oh, wow, look at that. Someone caught a plane crash on camera. That's cool, I guess. And then I stagger into the kitchen and eat my bowl of Reese's Puffs and didn't really think any more about it. And then 45-minute drive to school later, I'm slightly more awake, and I notice that the people for the morning meeting are quieter than usual, and I'm what is going on here? And they start talking about some kind of, terrorist attack that had happened. And I'm thinking, terrorist attack? I didn't hear anything about a terrorist attack. I wonder what's all that about. So I pull my friend at the time aside after, the morning congregation meeting. I'm hey, man, what is everyone talking about? And he's you didn't hear about the terrorist attack? It was all over the news, and I'm thinking, no, man, the only thing I knew about on the news was a plane crash. And he's yeah, man, that was the attack. some people hijacked a plane and slammed him into a really big building in, you know, New York or whatever. It was, yeah, it was quite the thing. Anyway, so that is my lore tidbit, my recollection about, you know, the day of the Trade Center attacks. Anyway, so now that that's out of the way, let's move on to something a bit more positive, I think, in the interest of you, my 6 subscribers, I guess, and whoever else runs across these videos, getting to know me a little bit better. I can't remember if I ever really introduced myself on this channel, but you may refer to me as Jack. Most people do. That is my name, and today we are talking about my top 5 favorite video games of all time, at least as of September 11th, 2022. So before we go into the actual top 5, I am going to shout out a few honorable mentions real quick. I did consider making this a top 10 list, but me going on and on about my top 5 favorite games is going to last long enough. So these honorable mentions, they're going to fly by pretty damn quick. So the first one I talked about very recently, Aliens Fireteam Elite, which is something that has a very good chance of replacing my number 5 on my top 5 list if they keep pumping out DLCs and expansions and updates of a good high quality, which they have been so far. Cold Iron Studios has really knocked it out of the park with this game, I think. Another one, Monster Hunter World and its expansion Iceborne. World was my first real introduction to the Monster Hunter video game series, and it was that way for, I think, a lot of people. Like, some of my friends have been playing Monster Hunter World, like, since, the Wii U and the 3DS days, and those particular iterations didn't really float my boat. I mean, the HUD system layout just looked like somebody vomited on the freaking screen. There was the whole bit where you had to like tag a monster and chase it between various different zones that were all separated by loading screens. The fact that you had to find whetstones out in the wild rather than just having a whetstone on you at all time to resharpen your thing, it was just a mess. And then World fixed a lot of those issues and was a big title release on modern consoles. Well, I say modern, I guess PS5 and whatever is modern now, so technically last gen consoles. Whatever, doesn't matter. It brought a lot of people, including myself, into the world of monster hunting, and I sunk 2,000 hours into that game. And I'm on track to do the same with Sunbreak. There's a lot I like about Sunbreak too. It's not here as an honorable mention because I really just, well, one, it's a Switch game. I mean, it's on PC now, but it was originally a Switch game, so the graphics don't look quite as good as World, in my opinion. They don't have the same level of, your personal room customization that World had, and then cranked up to 11 with Iceborne. I really loved that. And, it just allowed me to, show off all of my, crossover event things, like my green herbs and first aid sprays from the Resident Evil crossover. So, Sunbreak has a lot good going for it. It just lacks some of the charm and polish of Monster Hunter World, I think. And then the last honorable mention I'm going to put out there, the Infamous series, which I hope someday gets another game, because, when I was playing Infamous, I wasn't really, too much of a stranger to, open-world superhero games. Spider-Man 2 is freaking legendary for that. But, yeah, just the whole series of Infamous, the story it tells, was really freaking cool, and I love Infamous Second Son and First Light, but I still think I rank Infamous 1 and 2 a little bit higher than Second Son and First Light, just because electricity manipulation has been, my favorite superpower for ever, pretty much. So being able to play as Cole McGrath with his lightning-based superpowers, that just, ticked off all the boxes for me. I loved it. Anyway, on to the actual numbered list. And my number 5 pick for favorite game of all time is Star Wars Squadrons. So, if they're, If there's a game that I played as much as my number one pick, which we will get to when we get to the number one spot, obviously, for like most played game, it would definitely have been Star Wars Rogue Squadron. Like, I didn't have too terribly many games growing up. Like, my first system was a Sega Genesis, and I had Sonic the Hedgehog, I had Streets of Rage 2, and there was one other game. It was my least played Sega Genesis game. What the hell was it? Oh, I had Shinobi. I had a Shinobi game on there, and I think... Was it called Ringmaster? I think it was called Ringmaster was my fourth Sega game. Let me Google that real quick. Ringmaster game. It was Ring something or other. Sega Ringmaster? Was it Jewel Master? It might have been Jewel Master. Whatever, it was a game where you could equip yourself with like a whole bunch of different rings, all that did like different things. Yeah, okay, it was apparently called Jewel Master, and I think I was probably a little bit too young to be like really getting what the game was. Point is, so that was my Sega games, and then I got a SNES with Mega Man X2 and Super Street Fighter 2, and then from there I got a Nintendo 64, which I had 3 games for when I originally got it, one of which was Rogue Squadron. So Rogue Squadron I played to death, almost, like, because just being able to fly all of the different starships from, you know, Star Wars, like the X-Wing, the Y-Wing, the Millennium Falcon, plus all the weird ones like the Naboo Starfighter, which was in the game before Episode 1 released, to like the car, the convertible that you could just fly in space somehow. It was a lovely game. And Star Wars Squadrons came out and essentially gave me like more of that, but also combined it with, you know, a flight simulator, like a legit flight simulator where you have to learn everything, like what all the stuff on your like control panel actually does. And then you're limited to like the first person view, so it's like a flight sim in the truest sense, which, like I said, it's basically more Rogue Squadron. I was one of the weirdos who played Rogue Squadron from the first person perspective because why the hell wouldn't you? It was like you were literally inside the freaking starfighter. I mean, okay, that's a lie. I didn't play from first-person view when I flew as the Millennium Falcon because the Millennium Falcon's kind of lopsided. Its its cockpit's off to one side, so it was a bit awkward. I didn't do it with that, but I did it with all the rest of the ships. Anyway, so taking like things like my love of flight simulators and then actually legitimately combining it with Star Wars, it's a perfect storm, honestly. So, like, talking about the gameplay for a little bit, by the time the game stopped getting updates, there was 5 different starships for each faction, the Rebels and the Empire. Me, personally, I am a bomber main for life. There's just something about flying, like, the most heavily armed and armored starship, and, like, going in the fleet battles and taking out the various different subsystems on the opposing capital ship is just viscerally satisfying, man. Like, Star Wars Squadrons, even still to this day, is one of the games that I, like, go to for, like, a comfort game, essentially. So, like, one of my favorite things to do is, like, after the kids and the wife go to bed and I have, like, an hour to myself before I have to go to bed, I'll, like, put on Star Wars Squadrons, grab some headphones, put the headphones on, and then crank up some, like, Guns N' Roses or some Motley Crue or something, and then just go wild in a fleet battle versus the AI. It's just, it just feels so good. Yeah, so, like I said, I'm a bomber main for life. I do occasionally fly the support ships, the TIE Reaper and the U-Wing, if I'm, like, feeling particularly lazy and just want an easy victory. Like, I'll do that occasionally. Yeah, it's just... The reason this is at my number 5 and is in danger of getting knocked off my top 5 list is that this game's life didn't really last all that long. They stopped doing updates for it, I think, within, like, a year almost, maybe a little over a year. And the multiplayer, from what I can understand, is essentially dead at this point, which is real sad because, man, I have some great memories of playing this game online, even with randos. Like, I feel mildly bad about not remembering this guy's name. At least I think it was a guy. Could have been a girl. I don't know. We weren't on microphones. But at the same time, this guy's guy or girls or whatever's PSN identity was like one of those identities that was just like a seemingly random string of letters and numbers. But like, I stuck around with this person for 5 or 6 matches back in the day, and like within the first match, we won 3 out of these 5 matches that we were on. Like, me and this person, like, we developed a system. So I would be flying the bomber, as is, right and proper, and this person was playing the support ship. So he would follow along behind me as we go on the offensive, and I'm going after one of the enemy's capital ships, and he would fly behind me, and he would just be dropping. Yeah, I keep saying he. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna go with it. He would be dropping the resupply pods like in my wake, and then he would wait to get to the capital ship just close enough that he'd be able to tag it with a targeting beacon. Which, if you haven't played this game, what the support ship's targeting beacon does is it makes it so the enemy, if it's a fighter, can't shake your lock on if you're using a homing weapon, and it also causes you to do a certain percentage more damage to any enemy that's been tagged. So he would tag the capital ship, and then I would run in, drop all of my bombs, then come out and go pick up one of his resupply pods for healing and more ammunition, and then loop back again, and I would do these bombing loops on the capital ship while he ran back to our side and hit the resupply on our capital ships, and then come back just in time to tag the capital ship again with another targeting beacon, and the cycle would just repeat. It was, man, teamwork really does make the dream work. It was so much fun, and I'm real sad, like I said, that this game didn't get continuous updates like, other live service games have, I guess. I hope somewhere down the line that there's a sequel to this game in the works, because, man, it needs one. I might be one of the rare people who still play it to this day, but Motive, EA, listen to me, this game was awesome. Also, the characters in this game were also great. I don't think there was such a thing as a bad character in this game. I mean, okay, so for me personally, when it comes to like Star Wars fandom, are you Rebel Alliance or are you an Empire supporter? I'm like, well, you can't see it, but I have an Empire tattoo on my shoulder. I am very much a dark side Imperial guy, so I might be a little bit biased. But I liked the Imperial crew a little bit better than I liked the Rebel crew, because, I don't know, the Rebel crew, like, there's nothing wrong with them. They're not bad characters at all, but they're just a little bit too, like, I don't know, kind of upbeat, plucky, positive. Like, they're the good guys and they know they're doing the right thing, and that's fine. But the Empire side was really interesting to me because pretty much all of your Empire crewmates understood in some form or another that they were in the wrong, but they all also had reasons for continuing to support the Empire. Like your commanding officer, Captain Gray, like, he knew that the Empire was fucked up. Like, he didn't appreciate what they did to Alderaan, and then Operation Cinder happened, and he knew the Empire was wrong, and he hated it, but he kept going anyway because he had seen too many of, like, his friends and family die in the service of the Empire. So he's one of those characters, like, I've literally come too far, I can't stop now. And then there was Rayla Sol, who seems a little bit naive, but she's essentially trying to, like, climb the ranks and get close to Grand Admiral Sloane so she can be like, hey, if we just brought back the Imperial Senate, then we could fix a lot of what was wrong with the Empire. And it's like, I mean, her heart's in the right place, I get that, but also, like, the Imperial Senate, and even then, like, the old Republic Senate before that was not really all that great. I mean, if you, like, go back and watch Star Wars Episode 1, with, like, the Trade Federation, like, blockading and trying to impose, like, trade agreements and stuff on Naboo, Like, they were quite literally blockading the planet and forcing people into, like, camps and stuff like that, doing horrific, awful things. And in order to, like, even get any help from the Jedi, let alone anyone else, like, not only did Queen Amidala have to escape, but she had to go to the Senate and then, like, plead her case to the Senate. They're like, please help us. They're like blockading our planet. And even then, the representatives of the Trade Federation were all like, this is outrageous. Like, you don't have any proof of this, blah, blah, blah. And then has to, like, work its way up the chain of command, put the stuff to a vote. It's ridiculous. What I'm saying is, the Empire's bad. Like, no doubt, but even then, like, people have, like, rose-tinted goggles for, the older public, and it's like, the older public wasn't all that great in and of itself. Point is, Rayla Saw's heart is in the right place 100%, but she's a little bit naive, thinking that if just bringing back the Senate would fix all the problems. She's not wrong that it would be at least a start, though, but, well, anyone who's seen the Star Wars series knows that doesn't happen. And then there's also Shen. Shen's awesome. So we never actually see Shen's face because he literally can't take off his TIE pilot suit because it's functioning as a life support. Because Shen has been shot down so many times that, like, his helmet is literally stabilizing his broken neck. But he still hops in a TIE fighter any chance he gets anyway, because that's just what Shen does. Like, he said it best himself. Fight, fall, get up, fight again. All for the Empire. Just really, like, Shen is what Vader would be if Vader didn't have Force powers, I think. He's really, really freaking cool. And then, there's my favorite character. Also, my Star Wars waifu for lifeu, as it were. Havina Vonreg. Hands down my favorite character in the entire game. She doesn't give a flying fuck if the Empire is right or wrong. She just really, really wants to kill rebels. Because, yes, they're at war, but also rebels have killed some of her family, so she's going to kill them right back. I guess that does beg the question, what does it say about me that my chosen Star Wars waifu is a bloodthirsty lunatic? You probably just shouldn't think too terribly hard about that. Anyway, yeah, Star Wars Squadron is my number 5 pick. Great gameplay, great story, great characters, great level of customization you can put into your starfighters, because I've spent a lot of time on my TIE Bomber, and damn it, I am proud of that thing. Alright, so that's my number 5 pick. My number 4 pick is Yakuza 0. So, there's a story behind how I got into this game. It is the only game I've ever played, excluding things like Rock Band and Guitar Hero, because those are music games, but I got into this game originally because of the soundtrack. And I didn't know it was the soundtrack at the time. I can't remember whose video it was that I was watching, but somebody was using the song Pledge of Demon, which is Daisaku Kuze's boss theme in this game, for background music of something I can't remember what it was. But I just remember thinking, this boss track goes freaking hard, man. Like, this is the most unnecessarily, like, kick-ass rocking boss theme I've ever heard. So, like, I was scrolling through this video's comments, like, looking at, like, somebody please freaking tell me the name of this song. I need to know. I need it on my liked list. And eventually I found it, and like I said, the song is called Pledge of Demon. Just type in Pledge of Demon, Yakuza 0. You'll find the song. Go listen to it right now. It's way too freaking cool. I'll wait. Okay, I'm assuming you're back, and I'm assuming you've listened to the song. Is that song not freaking awesome? Just, it's so good. So anyway, I looked up the song, I found the song, and I found the game it was attached to. And I'm like, alright, the third-person action brawler, this actually looks like a game I might enjoy. So, luckily around that same time, Yakuza 0 was on sale on the PlayStation Store. So I got it, and boy, I don't think I have ever fallen down the rabbit hole of a video game series as fast or as hard as I fell down the Yakuza rabbit hole. So, to preface, I knew a little bit about the Yakuza series, and like I'd seen some like gameplay and cutscene like clips from the original PS2 release of Yakuza 1. So I had a passing familiarity with this game. And I bring that up. I deliberately brought that up. I will tell you why in a minute after I finish like explaining this game. Not entirely, that would take for whatever. Point is, I knew a little bit about this game. So, you see the two characters most up front. Eye Patch Guy is Goro Majima, and White Suit Guy is Kazuma Kiryu. Those are the two characters you switch between as you progress through the story of this game. And, like, I was just expecting, like, basic third-person action brawler story that's just a freaking excuse for you to keep going and beating the shit out of people. Boy, was I wrong. So, it turns out that this game, this entire plot centers around, like, quite literally, a vacant plot of land that all these various people are trying to, like, get their hands on, essentially, because it's, like, centrally located, and if you get that spot, then you can, like, I guess, expand out from there. It's a convoluted crime drama. I'm not going to try to explain the whole thing, but essentially, Kiryu is like he was collecting from this guy who owed the Tojo clan money, and then that same guy turns up dead in this plot of land they're calling the Empty Lot. And apparently in like Yakuza, like actually like straight up murdering somebody, like actually just killing someone is a pretty big freaking no-no. Which, I mean, it makes sense, it's murder. But anyway, so Kiryu gets framed for this murder. He has to go on the run and then, like, dive through this entire plot trying to figure out who framed him. And, yeah, there's a lot going on in this game. And then you flip over to Majima's side, and Majima is running this very successful cabaret club. But you come to find out that he's actually running it, like, as punishment for him screwing up, which, I mean, for anybody else, being the successful owner of a cabaret club would, like, not be a punishment, but Majima's, like, one of those guys, like, he really, really, really wants to be, like, the Yakuza guy, but he's actually legitimately just, like, too freaking nice to actually pull it off. So, these two plot lines go of, like, Majima trying to, like, prove himself and overcome his failure, and Kiryu trying to clear his own name so he can go back to his old life. And they never quite intersect, but like things will happen on Kiryu's side of the story that affect Majima's and vice versa. So at the end of this whole freaking insane, very, very well written crime drama, at the very end, Kiryu and Majima finally like meet on the street. And before this point, Majima had come to the conclusion that, alright, if I'm actually going to be a successful Yakuza, I can't be, like, nice guy about it. I have to be, like, crazier than everyone else. So he, like, cuts his hair, gets himself this ridiculous, like, gold jacket, and just starts acting like a complete freaking psychopath. And, like, the last shot of the game, he sees Kiryu walking down the street toward him, and he, like, just flashes this insane grin, and just says, Kiryu-chan! And then that's when the dots connected, right? That's why I brought up the gameplay and, like, cutscenes from the original PS2 Yakuza, because that's when I finally realized, like, holy shit, Majima, that's the guy who was voiced by Mark freaking Hamill in the PS2 game. It just blew my freaking mind. I hope all that made sense, because trying to explain the story of Yakuza 0 is, it's one of those things you really just gotta play for yourself, and if you do, man, clear some time to play this game, because once you get into it, you're not coming out for a while. Like, yeah, I probably played, like, my first playthrough, like, I wasn't trying to completionist run it or anything, but probably took me somewhere between, like, 150 to, like, 200 hours, because there's just so much to this game. There's 20 plus chapters of just the main story alone, and that's not even getting into the side quests, which the side quests, all of those are also really well written, even though they go from like actually like yeah kind of sweet to completely just ludicrous insanity. So like At one point, I was walking down the street as Kiryu, and I'm like heading toward my next story objective, and then I get sidetracked and I go into this hobby shop, and then I get embroiled in this whole like child drama almost that involves a tough Yakuza boogeyman Kiryu hanging out in a hobby shop with like kids and like, young adults just racing little remote controlled cars around a track. And there's this whole side story between these three kids, two boys and a girl, and like one boy has a crush on the girl, but he keeps losing to his friend, so the girl, obviously is hanging on to the winner of the group and ignoring the kid who has a crush on her. It's literally a child story that Kiryu just gets involved with because he blundered into this hobby shop and got convinced to start racing toy cars. And then there's another one. I can't remember if it was Kiryu's or Majima's side quest, but one of them like goes to this corner store where they're selling video games, and you meet this other kid who's like crying, and he's like, "Oh man, what's wrong, kid?" And he's like, "Oh, like I saved up my allowance to buy this game, but this older kid knocked me down and stole my game." So then you chase down the kid who stole the game, and you find him, and he's like, "Yeah, man, I stole this game, but like this freaking Yakuza thug beat me up and took my game." Or no, it wasn't a Yakuza thug, it was somebody else. So then you like go and find the guy who stole the game from the older kid, and then he's the one who's like, "Yeah, this freaking Yakuza thug beat me up and stole this game." So then you track down the Yakuza thug, beat the shit out of him, and he's like, "I'm sorry, like I didn't want to do this, but I wanted to get this game for my son, but I tried to go to the store, and all the games are sold out." And then you find out that the Yakuza thug who beat up the thief, who beat up the older kid, who beat up the younger kid, is the father of the kid who got beaten up and the game stolen from in the first place. Yakuza is just freaking wonderful, man. Like I said, I fell down the freaking rabbit hole. I played through Yakuza 0 and like instantly went and bought Yakuza Kiwami 1, played through Kiwami 1, bought Yakuza Kiwami 2, and then from there I skipped over a few because I heard that like the not necessarily like remaster or remake of 3 is bad, but it's definitely on the older side. So I actually skipped all the way over to Yakuza 7 Like a Dragon, which that game also deserves an honorable mention for being one of the few turn-based games I actually enjoy playing. But anyway, I went to like Yakuza 7, and then also into the spin-off series Judgment and Lost Judgment, which are also really freaking good, but they're not really Yakuza stories. They're the Judgment and Lost Judgment games. They're a detective story, which is also really freaking good. This whole game series is just awesome, and I have to give a special shout out to Daisaku Kuze, which you can see him. He's the guy with the pipe riding a motorcycle that's over Kiryu's. I had to turn right shoulder. Like you can't see my mouse, but that guy in the glasses holding the pipe. That's Kuze. That's the guy whose boss fight theme got me to go down this entire freaking rabbit hole in the first place, and he's the standout villain of the game for me because there's like a lot of betrayal, backstabbing, behind the scenes stuff going on with like the various different villains, most of which you can actually see in the background there. But Kuze's fucking special because not only does he have the best boss theme in the entire freaking game, but he's also the one that keeps coming after Kiryu like face to face, and you fight him like 4 or 5 times throughout the game. He's like the reoccurring boss of Kiryu's campaign. And he's just really cool because like almost every time he will just like walk right up to your face and just challenge you right then and there. No backstabbing, no trickery. Like the one time he really kind of does trickery, it's like not even really him. Like he shows up and he's gonna beat the shit out of you, but there's more like other Yakuza guys there, and you can tell he's like annoyed that these other dudes are there, but at that time he can't really do anything about it. And then when you get to the end of the campaign and you have your final fight against him, his boss theme switches to a track called Oath of Enma, which is spelled E-N-M-A, Enma. And it's like a slowed down, more acoustic-y version of Pledge of Demon. And he tells you, like, at the start of the fight, he's like, "Yep, like, there's no one else on this street. It's just you and me. One more time. Let's finish this." And then when you finally beat him, he's like the one who's like, "Yep, Kiryu's adopted dad told us, like, don't bring you into the life. Like, you're waking up a dragon if you do that. And then he just picks himself up off the street, walks himself down to the police station, and turns himself in because he lost. He knew he couldn't win. But rather than, like, piss or moan or try to, like, finagle his way out of it, he just took the manly route, accepted his loss gracefully, and turned himself in. Sega. Yakuza Studios. We need a Kuze game. Just saying. It'd be pretty freaking cool. I would pre-order that game so hard. Anyway, Yakuza 0. That is my number 4 pick for our top 5 favorite games of all time. My next pick for number 3, ironically, Silent Hill 3. So there's a big divide on the internet about whether Silent Hill 2 or Silent Hill 3 is the better game. And as someone on Reddit so eloquently put it, trying to decide whether Silent Hill 2 or 3 is better is like trying to decide whether Africa or Hold the Line is the better Toto song. They're both great in different ways, and it's really down to a matter of taste at that point. And for the record, I'm a Hold the Line guy. So anyway, I thought long and hard about why I liked Silent Hill 3 better than 2. And it's not necessarily like the story or the better gameplay or the better graphics or anything like that. I finally figured it out. And I think it's because at the time I was playing these games, I was able to like better connect and empathize with the main character of 3, Heather, than I was the main character of 2, which is James. So when I got around to playing Silent Hill 3, I was 15 years old at that point. So I was a teenager who was playing a game as another teenager who was, like, going through this horrific journey and reacting to the various awful situations she's put in as a teenager would. Whereas when I played through Silent Hill 2, I was playing as a guy, a grown man, who was dealing with, or at least trying to deal with his wife's death. Now, obviously, I think I was like 12, 13 at the time that I played Silent Hill 2, so like on an objective level, I was able to understand what was going on, but I didn't have the emotional connection that I had with Heather in Silent Hill 3 because, like a 12, 13-year-old kid is not going to understand the trauma of somebody, losing their significant other. So that's why I favor Silent Hill 3 over 2, is because of that emotional connection I was able to have with Heather. So, that's why I like Silent Hill 3 on the whole better than 2, because I understand the main character a little bit better. Like, I still can't fully empathize with James in Silent Hill 2, because I don't know what it's like to lose a wife. And, God willing, I never will. I don't want to be able to empathize with James because, well, obvious reasons. But the gameplay, the graphics, the soundtrack of, like, technically both of these games, but specifically Silent Hill 3, are just fucking incredible. Like, I'm not the kind of person who, like, listens to the Silent Hill soundtrack just for funsies, except for one. There's one track that I will listen to. Let me Google it real quick so I can tell you what the song is called. Okay, the song is called I Want Love Studio Mix, and I believe the artist is, you could just Google I Want Love Studio Mix Silent Hill 3 soundtrack, but I think the lady who did the song was Melissa Williamson? Let me check real quick. Because this, the I Want Love Studio Mix is such a fucking banger that the people who made the song deserve their own special shout out. Any second now. It's loading. I didn't want to freaking... Akira Yamaoka is the person who did the Silent Hill soundtrack as a whole. I hope this doesn't come through the microphone because I don't want to get a copyright strike. It's not telling me. That's annoying, and I don't want to spend that much longer looking for it, but I'm pretty sure it was Melissa Williamson. Yep, I was right. Melissa Williamson. Also, possibly Mary Elizabeth McGlynn, which, shout out to her. She's an amazing voice actress. Anyway, so that, yeah, I Want Love Studio Mix. That's the one song off of Silent Hill 3 that I will really actually just go to listen to for the joy of listening to the music. But the rest of the soundtrack, it's weird music, which it should be because it's Silent Hill, but it fits like the mood and the atmosphere of the game so incredibly well. If there's anything you could call like a perfect soundtrack, it's the Silent Hill 3 soundtrack. Specifically made for Silent Hill 3 for the purposes of augmenting the atmosphere and the mood. It just does it so freaking perfectly. And at some point, I'm definitely going to play some Silent Hill games on this channel. I'm probably going to get my friend Noodle in on that because, I mean, if you're going to play Silent Hill 3, you should play Silent Hill 2. There's no excuse not to if you can get your hands on it. And, well, Noodle is one of the people who favors 2 over 3, which, again, fine. He knows that game much better than I do. But, yeah, Silent Hill 3. Not my first survival horror game. I'll get there. But it's definitely one of the ones that sticks out in my mind. Just really all around about as perfect a game as you can possibly get without actually being my number 1 pick. But we're going to get there. So that was Silent Hill 3. My number 2 pick is Bloodborne. Because, man, I did not know what I was freaking getting into with this game. So Bloodborne is my first real taste of, I guess, what is now called a Soulsborne game. And, I'd played a little bit of Dark Souls 1 before I got Bloodborne, but it just, I don't know, I was never really hooked by Dark Souls the same way I was as Bloodborne. But I saw the trailers, I saw some gameplay for Bloodborne, like the gothic, Victorian aesthetic of the game, just right off the bat in the initial trailers, just freaking, it spoke to me, man. I knew that I would, with Dark Souls 1, if I had put in the time to, try and get good, as they say, I would have, and I eventually did. But Bloodborne, I saw that, and I'm like, okay, this is a game that I want to play. I actually want to get good at this game. And I did. And, whew, man, just, I could say this about all the games on this list. I fucking love this game. Bloodborne is one of 2 games that I will actually set aside time for every single year to play through at least once. And I appreciate the fact that it was more streamlined, I guess, than any of the Dark Souls games. The Dark Souls games give you a lot of versatility with all the different builds and playstyles you can do, whereas Bloodborne, no matter what kind of playstyle or build you do, you're always going to be, dodging instead of blocking. You're always going to be, having a gun in your offhand usually to, execute the parry mechanic. There are going to be constants between every single playthrough you have. Every single type of build you do in this game are all going to have that same basis in, dodging and gun parrying, which, in the end, allowed me to get good easier at the game, because I could, go and watch YouTube videos, or watch some of my friends play Bloodborne, and, kind of, learn from them, whereas, if I watched other people playing Dark Souls, then people would be like, oh yeah, I'm I'm doing a heavy armor faith build. I'd be like, well, that doesn't really help my light armor dex build, now does it? But you could watch different people play Bloodborne and see them using the exact same tool set that you were using, and realizing oh, Like, I could do that slightly differently, and I could just take that and apply it to my own particular way of playing the game. Also, I really like the story of Bloodborne more than I do the Souls games. Like, the Souls games, there's a lot, like, you could just go watch Fatih Vidya and he could explain pretty much everything to you, but there's a lot left up to, like, interpretation, I guess, which, there's a lot of that in Bloodborne, too, but, like, Dark Souls kind of embraces more of the fantasy tropes, which, if you're not careful, fantasy settings can kind of seem like it's up its own ass a little bit, if you know what I'm talking about. Whereas Bloodborne, like, if you really look, the explanations are there, which there's a lot in Dark Souls that is left unexplained, which, I like a good mystery, don't get me wrong, but also there's that kind of, like, itch at the back of your brain, like, God damn it, if I just had an explanation for this mystery, then everything would make sense, and I would be happier. You don't really get that with Bloodborne, as long as you're willing to read into it. Like, all the clues as to what is actually happening are there. And also, it goes from hack and slash werewolf story to fucking Cthulhu monster story. And I'm a huge H.P. Lovecraft fan, so, like, once they brought in, like, the great old ones like Erden, Ibridis, Kaz, I was like, yeah, okay, like, I like a good hack and slash werewolf story, but boy, do I fucking love a good cosmic horror story. And, like, the art direction of the game, the very minimalist soundtrack, like, there's music in this game, obviously, but, like, just when you're wandering around the overworld, like in Yharnam or Yarhard, well, actually, no, there's music in Yargul, but, like, most area in the game don't actually have music. The music is, like, reserved for, like, boss fights and stuff like that, which stand out for me. Like, almost everybody loves Ludwig's theme from the DLC, and Ludwig's theme is fucking killer. Like, to quote the man himself, Maxor the Living Computer, like, you listen to Ludwig's theme and you are like, holy shit, I am alive right now! My personal favorite, though, is Gascoigne's theme, and here's why. So, most people, I think, like me, the first boss they encountered was the Cleric Beast. And the Cleric Beast theme is also pretty damn good, but, like, you run into the boss arena and, like, the Cleric theme, like kicks in, the Cleric Beast jumps over the wall and lands right in front of you, and the fight starts, and it's this big freaking, like, green tree wolf-looking monster who's ripping you to shreds and shit like that, and then you finally beat him, and it feels fucking great, because also, fuck the Cleric Beast, I hate that guy. But you beat him, and you're like, whew, boy, that was quite the introduction. It's only gonna get bigger from here, isn't it? And then you continue playing through the game, and you make it to Gascoigne. And he's a man, just sitting there chopping up like a beast man with the axe, and get that old classic line like, beasts all over the shop, you'll be one of them, sooner or later. And the delivery of the line's not at all like that, I'm sorry. But then, also the other good one, what's that smell? Oh, the sweet blood, it sings to me. But then, like, that slow theme kicks in with, like, the heavy drums and the horns. Bum, 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 bum. And it's like, you think at the start, oh, I'm just a man or woman who's just fighting another man. Like, I kicked the Cleric Beast's ass, I should be fine. But then the music really ramps up, and it starts to drive home the point that, no, man, the most dangerous things here, they aren't the big monsters. The most dangerous people here are the other fucking hunters. And that holds true for pretty much all of the game. Like, Gascoigne, Gehrman, Lady Maria, like, they're some of the fucking hardest fights in the game. And it's great. I love it. I fucking love Gascoigne's theme. Gascoigne's theme is, like, in the context of this game, is the epitome of, like, you done fucked up now. Just, Bloodborne. Bloodborne, you are so good. FromSoft, please port this game to PC so we can, like, mod it and shit. And also, please, give us Bloodborne 2. I know Bloodborne really was kind of like a lightning in the bottle situation, a perfect storm. Like, you hit the nail on the head the first time, you don't need a sequel, but I'd really like one. I know it probably won't be as good as the first game, but I'll still play it. I promise. Just give us more Bloodborne, please. Pretty please. Oh, God, Bloodborne. Just, even if you're not a fan of, like, Soulsborne games, if you have the chance, of all, like, the FromSoft games that have come out, like Dark Souls, Elden Ring, Bloodborne, Sekiro, if you had to at least try just one of them, pick Bloodborne. It's... You probably won't be disappointed unless you just absolutely hate the whole Soulsborne style of game, but it's good. It's my second favorite game of all time, and unless they make a Bloodborne 2 that is somehow better than Bloodborne 1, I don't see it moving from that spot anytime soon. Alright, so on to my number one favorite game of all time. Resident Evil 2. Now, I should preface by saying that Resident Evil 2, my number one favorite game of all time, this spot is co-shared by both the 1998 version and the 2019 version. They both have the top spot for different reasons. Like, yes, they're technically the same game, but they're two iterations of the same game that have some pretty glaring differences. So, Resident Evil 2, the 1998 version, which I first played on the Nintendo 64, was like my first... it was my first introduction to the survival horror genre of video games. And it was also my first real encounter, like, at least that I could understand from a game, that, like, this is the game that really drove home the point that, like, okay, video games aren't just, like, fun little time wasters. Video games are a medium that can actually, like, tell a really amazing and compelling story. And that, like, you know, my 10-year-old self, that blew my fucking mind. Because, like, I used to think, like, if I wanted a story, like, I need to go read a book or watch a movie or something. But no, you can consume and engage with a story in the form of video game. And to my 10-year-old self, that was amazing at the time. Like, this is the game that I have played to death. I don't think there isn't anything I haven't done with this game. Like I've done it all. I've done speed runs. I've done knife only runs. I've even managed a few times no damage runs. Like, if there's something you could do in this game, at least the 1998 version, I've done it. Yeah, just sorry, I'm having flashbacks of the first time I played this game, because this is also the first game I've ever played that actually got me to stop playing the game because I was too scared. And it specifically is the scene where you're going down the big train elevator to get to the Umbrella Labs, and you go outside, and William Birkin is up on top of the train, and you see, like, his human head, like, sink into his chest, and another one grow in its place. Like, yeah, sure, this was polygonal 1998 graphics on the N64, but man, that scared the shit out of my 10-year-old self, let me tell you. This game, in my opinion, is perfect. That's what I got. It's perfect. I love the story. I love the characters. I even love the freaking hokey voice acting in the original 1998 version. And then they remade it in 2019, and they took most of what the 1998 version had and just made it better. Like, made the graphics photorealistic, rewrote the story to, like, you know, counter the parts of the original story that maybe didn't possibly make sense. So the reason that this game co-shares its spot with both its 1998 and its 2019 version is because, like, the 2019 version has, like, the better characters, the better graphics, the better gameplay. The soundtrack, I mean, I feel the same about the soundtrack in 2019 as I do in the 1998 version. Like, I'm glad they included the option to replace the modern soundtrack with the 1998 one, because, I mean, the soundtrack's not bad, but, like, the save room theme and like the theme you hear upon like first entering the police station, they're just they're so iconic and like ingrained in my memory that I like having the option to go back to the original versus, the remake version, which is fine. So, like, the remake version obviously is superior to the 1998 version, like I said, in graphics, gameplay, writing, characters, but it was missing some of the stuff that made the 1998 version really as interesting as it was. So, one thing that I like the 1998 version for over the 2019 version, and I don't know if this was deliberate on the part of the design team, but either way, I love this. So, the 1998 police station looks clean in a weird way. Like, the 2019 version police station looks like it's been through a freaking war, because it essentially has at that point. Like, the station's all fucked up, there's blood everywhere, broken furniture, like, the bathrooms are flooding. It looks like a war zone, because it is. But the 1998 police station is eerily, like, clean and quiet. Like, and I'm thinking it was a limitation of the graphics at the time that they had to do it that way, but it also gave it, like, this strange air of mystery. Like, you know something bad happened in this police station, but you're, like, walking around these clean, brightly lit rooms, and there's just almost, like, other than the occasional zombie you run across, there's no sign that anything is really wrong in this police station, and that like I said, it gives it that weird air of mystery. The other thing I really miss from the 1998 version that the 2019 version does not have is called I think it's called like the item zapping system. So basically, there's 2 points of the game that you can reach that you have to do something on an A scenario in order to get something else on the B scenario. So like the first time is when you make it to the armory of the police station in the 1998 version. Like, you open a locker and there's a machine gun and an item pouch in there, and you like have a choice. Like, you can, whichever one you take, if you look in the locker again, your character will say something like, "Oh man, I better leave this for Leon," or "I better leave this for Claire." And if you choose not to take the item, whatever item that was that you didn't take is going to be there when you come through the B scenario with the other character. And like, if you're especially smart or like looking for a challenge, if you leave both items there, then the character in the B scenario, after you've completed A, will have access to both of those items, which makes the playthrough a lot easier, in my opinion. And the second time you come across item zapping is when you get to the Umbrella Lab. There's a computer you have to log into that you can log your handprint with at the bottom of the lab, and then you go all the way back up top to the top of the lab, and you use your handprint on this door that has a handprint scanner, and then it will prompt you like, okay, we need a second handprint in order for you to open this door, which obviously you can't do on the A scenario, but if you remember, when you come through the lab again on the B scenario, and make sure to do that with the B scenario character, then you gain access to a room that's only available for you to get into on the B scenario, which has its own unique music, which is a piece called The Wreckage of the Mad Experiment, which is just a really creepy sounding song. But you gain access to like this lab area where there's like G-virus experimentations like hanging out in these like fucking pods full of liquid, and it's the only place in the entire game, at least that I know of, and I know a lot about this game, so I think I'm right here. It's the only place in the entire game where you can pick up more machine gun ammo for the machine gun you find in the RPD armory. Or, if you took the machine gun on the A scenario, it's the only place the B scenario character can actually pick up the machine gun. It's so cool and so cleverly designed that, like, it makes you, like, when this game came out, I was still running on, like, dial-up internet. So I didn't have access to things like cheat codes, really. I mean, I did if I were willing to wait for the loading time. But, like, the only things I knew about this game came from magazines like Nintendo Power, which didn't give you full, like, playthrough guides of games like this. So you actually like had to like, I don't know, like take notes or remember to do something. And I felt so insanely clever when I figured out like, oh, that door with the handprint, like that's another thing I can do on B scenario. Pfft, mind blown. But yeah, the 2019 version of the game doesn't have that, which missed opportunity in my opinion. But the 2019 game is still really fucking good, which is why it co-shares my number one spot with the 1998 version. Because like, yeah, you lose some stuff like the item zapping system and all that, but you gain like so much more than you lose with like the graphics, the new characters, the new storytelling, even new game modes like the Ghost Survivors where you play as the guy from the freaking gun shop. Like the gun shop guy is so much more compelling in 2019 than he is in 1998. Like in 1998 he's a bit of a goofball. Like, who are you? What are you doing here? By the time I noticed something was wrong, the entire city was infested with zombies. Like, yeah? What, were you napping the whole time? Didn't freaking notice a zombie incursion? Like, alright. But then he dies, 30 seconds later anyway. But, like, when you meet him in 2019, he's actually a human who is, like, dealing with the trauma of the fact that, like, his wife's dead and his daughter is infected and he has to, like, go put her out of her misery, like, once you go by him as Leon with Ada in tow, and it's actually really freaking sad. But yeah, just Resident Evil 2, man. If anything could be called a perfect game, it would be Resident Evil 2. Hands down. But again, that's just my opinions. So, this has been my list of my top 5 favorite games of all time as of September 11th, 2022. This list is subject to change later on down the line if we get such things as, Bloodborne 2, or the upcoming Resident Evil 4 remake, which comes out not long after my birthday, so I know what I'm asking for a birthday present when it gets here. Yeah, well, it's went a bit longer than I was expecting to. I'm just over an hour. I'm suddenly glad I decided to not make this a top 10 list. Well, if you enjoyed that little peek into my psyche, leave a like, leave a comment. I don't know. Discuss in the comments. Share your top 5 favorite games of all times. I'd be legitimately interested to hear that. So, thank you for listening/watching. Like, subscribe, comment, do the YouTube dance, and I will see you on the next episode. Have a wonderful day.